Good morning, guys. Thank you for joining us this morning. Um, we're not in the best state of mind because there is a horrific storm approaching Clearwater, Florida. Hello, Bella. What's up, Oneida? Good to see you. Thank you guys for coming in and holding space for the collective, holding space for so many of our supporters in the community that live in Clearwater, that live in Tampa, that have been reaching out. And we all have to do whatever it is that we can to show support for them as they face the unthinkable. This is a very, very serious natural disaster that's approaching. Clearwater, Florida is on the literal side of the sea, you guys. You cannot go more west than Clearwater, Florida. Clearwater, Florida is here, and Tampa Bay is here. So imagine that Clearwater is being swept in. It's like literally the first line of defense of this very, very serious hurricane storm that is fast approaching. And we never, for all the formative years that we lived in Florida, we never, ever, ever saw this level of warning being sounded. The alarms are being sound. And, plenty of people in the communities are mobilizing, but I am sad to announce that plenty of people are not moving. They're staying exactly where they are and hoping for the best. We've reached out to all the people in this community that we know, and plenty of people, including like family members of mine, have decided to stay. So everybody is an adult, everybody makes their own choice, but this is very, very concerning. Seriously. Imagine that the Fort Harrison Hotel is literally a few blocks away from the sea. The Sandcastle Hotel is literally on the sea. So if any of these 15-foot waves are coming, if the storm surge is coming, then that Sandcastle Hotel will disappear underwater. And as you all have seen, the Scientology people do not really take these type of warnings seriously, you guys. And this is what this live is about, because as I was sitting here digesting all this information coming out from meteorologists that went to school to study what happens and what can expect based on science, based on how these things work, I was reminded of how in Scientology we were told that the corporate news media is all about selling fear. Scientology held briefings to tell their community, oh, don't listen to the corporate media, you guys. They're just selling you fear. We have the OTs, don't forget. We're OT. We can overpower this. People are already going to their not session to overpower this. So don't worry about it. That's how the briefings went when Debbie Cooks was holding briefings. Oh, don't worry about it. The corporate media is blowing it out of proportion. And the problem is, you guys, that yes, in all the years that Clearwater's been there, in all the years that we had anything to do with that hotel, and any of the years that we've been out of the hotel, but still capable of following a news cycle, they've never faced the level of threat that they're facing today. And many Scientologists are going, well, we were told at the hotel that everything was great and wonderful and that we're about to use our OT powers right about now to shoo it all away. And that's very dangerous. That's very, 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 very dangerous. These people are literally at the very front line of receiving what it appears to be is going to be a very fierce, very powerful Category 3 disaster, hurricane, by the time it gets to them. And the thing about hurricanes, you guys, is it's not just like the 7 to 10 seconds of a earthquake, right? Like, it's not just this. Is sustained, systemic, literally blasting water, blasting winds, blasting air, blasting things floating everywhere. Like, the chaos of it is so unbelievable. It's so unthinkable. So we're going to review this part that is talking about, giving you guys like just an update of what they can be expecting. And let's really react because, hopefully more people that are still within time to evacuate Clearwater, that are still within time to evacuate, never mind the Scientology Sea Org members are not going to be evacuating because that's how Scientology runs it. Oh, no, you can just stay at the Fort Harrison. It's going to be fine. It's going to be wonderful. Everything's going to be okay because we have the OT powers that Owen Hubbard gave us to shoo it all away. And I know it sounds ridiculous for people, but it is what it is. So let's take a look at this incoming news and react to it.
The newest advisory just coming in from the National Hurricane Center, and Milton is growing in the Gulf of Mexico. Hurricane Milton is bigger and a little stronger as of the latest advisory. Winds now up to 150 miles an hour. Today is the last full day for Floridians to prepare for Milton, with a massive evacuation ahead of its landfall. The National Hurricane Center issuing a dire warning saying, quote, Milton has the potential to be one of the most destructive hurricanes on record for West Central Florida. Milton, as they go on to say, is an extremely serious threat, bringing a catastrophic storm surge, destructive hurricane force winds, and we also have a high risk for flash flooding.
Literally, this is so dire what's being literally explained here. And look at that map. Look at that map, you guys. The first thing you see here, right here where it says Tampa, well, right next to it, like outside of Tampa over here, is this little thing called Clearwater, Pinellas County area. Now, we're talking about a storm surge, and a lot of people might not understand what a storm surge is. I didn't understand it, but I looked it up. A storm surge is an abnormal rise in sea level caused by a storm. Tropical cyclones such as hurricanes do not just bring strong winds and heavy rain. Often is the storm surge that produces the most damage and threat to life through extensive coastal flooding. Tropical cyclones form at sea, fueled by warm water. Strong winds develop as air begins to circulate. Water is pushed in the direction in which the winds are blowing, causing the water levels to rise. This is not particularly noticeable in deep sea, but as the ocean floor becomes shallower close to land, the wall of water has to rise and is driven onshore by strong winds. Storm surges are worse at high tide, and other factors contribute to the water level too, such as the direction of approach, size and speed of the storm, central pressure, and topography of the coastline. So it's very, very, very concerning what is going on here. It's very, very concerning. The storm surge that Tampa's expecting can go up to 15 feet is what is being reported. That's not nothing, you guys. 15 feet underwater with all manner of things floating around and going everywhere. I mean, this is so concerning. And they are literally at the very forefront of this, because that's where L. Ron Hubbard set up his shop, very, very close to the sea.
At the coast, Milton could be devastating, if not deadly. As Stephen talked about, we're looking at an unprecedented 10 to 15.
I mean, right here, look at this. Hurricane warning. Tampa's never had this level of warning on a path of a hurricane, you guys, that I can remember from when I was there. It always could go more like over here. It always go more over there. But to have this be so in line, like, it's so concerning. Because once again, we have so many people that we know that live there, so many people that we have reached out, so many people in our community that are, evacuating. Fortunately, I did reach out to, some of our viewers that let us know that they were moving away. But like I said, a lot of the Scientologists are not moving. And I feel like that's the most concerning thing that I found out today, because I kept getting DMs. I kept getting told the Scientologists are not moving. They're just staying kaput. They're just saying, oh, we're going to be weathering the storm. We're going to just be protected ourselves right here. And you got to remember, like, this is going to go on for hours and hours and hours, where there is nothing you can do to stop the chaos outside. And, a lot of these people have kids and they're still there, staying inside with their kids, not wanting to leave. Because in what world is it going to make you more safe to stay there when you can't control anything? I mean, the only thing you can control is leaving. That's the only thing you can control. Whatever happens to your stuff, you being there or not being there isn't going to make it worse or better. But going back to how Scientology has manipulated the corporate media narratives and how they literally go, oh, don't listen to the corporate media. They're full of shit. I mean, literally Grant Cardone was already out there spreading misinformation about how this is a so-called man-made hurricane. So top of the Scientology ladder, Grant Cardone sits there saying that this is man-made. So imagine that. Imagine that that's what's so concerning about this moment right now. As much as we talk about Scientology, using highly illegal ways of exploiting kids, these are adults, these are elderly, these are kids. This is everybody getting exposed to this. All the thousands of staff members inside of these Scientology hotels do not have the ability to make a decision for themselves. They're told, you have to stay there. We were there as kids when we were facing one of these hurricanes, and we were literally put sandbags over the student motels all night. They call it an all hands. So everybody has to work on it. And at the time, I was at their prison program. So me and a bunch of other minors had to be manning this putting of sandbags very close to the sea line, because like the literal sea is here. The wall of the sea was here, and the hotels were like right behind it. And we were literally kept there for hours on end, putting sandbags here, raising like maybe like 5 feet. We built a little like sandbag thing. I mean, they had a lot of sand, and they would just give us those sandbags, and the wind was blowing. One of the kids almost fell into the thing one of the times that the wind came in. Very, very dangerous. But remember that children that are putting these sandbags are being told that they are adults, and the adults just use the kids as a slave workforce. There is no guardrails. There is no reining them back. There is no, that person's only 14. Maybe they shouldn't be doing that. No, just do it as a group, you guys. Let's all just do it as a group is what they call it. This is an all hands. So if you have hands, you put yourself in danger. That's how they treat you inside of those hotels. And I saw a lot of young kids that were, thanks to a streamer that went around showing what Scientology was doing, putting everyone with yellow t-shirts as if that's really going to do anything. They're just trying to sanitize their image and use it as a photo op. So they can say, look at what our volunteer ministers are doing. So volunteer ministers and kids, you know, being put to make sandbags and being told to not worry and just listen to the Scientology executives that are there, being know-it-alls and not really taking anything serious, because they always just tell us that this is what they tell you all the time inside of the hotel. The media is selling you fear. Oh, don't listen to the corporate media. They're just selling you being afraid. Don't become afraid just because they tell you. And yeah, anyone can be selling you fear, but maybe they're also coming with actual facts, scientific facts that are being discussed that, you know, should be taken seriously, honestly, because this is what's going on.
15-foot wall of water that could swallow Tampa and some of the surrounding areas. Historically, storm surge, it is the leading cause of hurricane-related deaths. The threat isn't just along the coast, though. Hurricane warnings, those stretch all the way to the east into Orlando, into Cape Canaveral. These are areas that could also be under the hurricane force winds that we could see unravel on Thursday. Power outages, those are pretty much a given. And those could last for days, if not for weeks.
Mandatory evacuations, those are underway. Tolls in West and Central Florida, as well as Alligator Alley and the 595 Express, they've been suspended, so it's free to travel on these roads. Emergency shoulder use, that's also still in place along eastbound I-4 and portions of northbound I-75 this morning. Florida DOT saying that the state, they don't use contraflow as it prevents necessary supplies and resources from going into the impact zone. They were explicit in saying that today.
Yeah, the interstates have been crowded. It's a good sign, right? Because it means people are heeding the warning. Some folks have decided to fly, to leave, to evacuate, but all flight operations at Tampa International Airport, well, those were suspended at 9 o'clock this morning. It's no longer an option out of Tampa. Airport officials are expecting it to stay closed until it's safe to reopen. Then you look at tomorrow morning, Orlando International Airport, that will be suspending, that airport will be suspending commercial, passenger, and private operations as well. And
as we watch how this storm has formed, how quickly it became a Category 5, we've seen that the winds are up just a little bit. 150-mile-per-hour winds moving off to the east-northeast, Marissa, a little slower. It was 12 miles an hour as of 8 o'clock. It's now down to 9 miles an hour, having little change or adjustment with what that might ultimately do to Florida. It's the same thing. Actually, let's bring in Fox Weather hurricane specialist Brian Norcross in the.
So we see right here, you guys, Clearwater live. And Amy, thank you for that. Yeah, JLR is showing the whole area now. Oh, it's literally so triggering to see that, you guys, because all it did is bring back memories of us being exposed to that. And imagine that we would have never been able to understand what was at stake in terms of our livelihoods, because we were dependent on so-called executives, Scientology executives, the ones that trafficked us, to tell us that we were not in danger. Keep putting sandbags out there. And from all the indicators that we see, They are not taking this seriously enough. They just go, oh, we're not PTS, so it doesn't matter. Nothing's going to happen to us because Warren Hubbard told us that if we're not PTS, then it means that nothing will happen. Everything's going to be great. Everything is going to be wonderful. We are not PTS. We just completed a course to handle PTS-ness. So now we're going to be great and wonderful. And that level of misinformation spreading in a very insular bubble where no one on the inside can make decisions for themselves couldn't be more absolutely disgusting. Because again, we told you, they were not concerned for our safety. They were very concerned for the safety of their buildings. So concerned that they would literally use children to go put sandbags all over the place, to board up the windows, to do all that heavy lifting Debbie Cook would put on underage kids. Oh yeah, you guys, really go put the sandbags. We wouldn't want the sandcastle to flood because then we're not going to be able to, deliver the OT levels. So go out there and put sandbags yourself as a 16-year-old, even if the tide can come and nab you. And once again, this is a storm that has never, in 100 years, they haven't had this level of dire warning out. Imagine that.
In the discussion, Brian, going over some of the newest info. This thing is expanding, and the Hurricane Center that it said that it completed an eyewall replacement cycle overnight.
Yeah, so they created a new eyewall that was 24 miles or so across, and now that has contracted down to about 14 miles. So this is like the figure skater bringing in the arms. When that happens, it starts spinning faster. That's why the wind speed went up a little bit. But we see signs now of another bigger eyewall forming, and so we expect the top wind number to go up and down. But the thing is that every time that happens, the storm gets bigger, and the expectation is that it will at least double in size by the time it gets to Florida. And it's the bigger size that creates the storm surge more than the top wind. You move a lot more water in your bathtub with your arm than you do with your hand. So the bigger diameter, unfortunately, creates a storm surge, and it looks like that's what we're going to get.
Which is so concerning, you guys. Exactly. Your whole arm moves a lot more water than your hand. And here we're talking about a whole hand in the bathwater going like this, and little tiny itty bitty clear water here at the very front of that surge. That's what it's facing.
So we have a 150-mile-an-hour hurricane now moving east-northeast at 9, more or less on track. It has pulled away from Mexico just a little bit, and 929 millibars. I mean, that sounds high compared to the fact that we were below 900 yesterday, but a 929 millibar hurricane by any measure is a fierce and intense hurricane. All right, here's the close up, and you can clearly see the eye, and you see the little jogging around, which very often happens when these eye walls form and reform. And here you can see the cluster of thunderstorms around it, but the hurricane hunters are noting that there might be a new eye wall forming, as I said, as this one shrinks in. There's the size of it. It's moving away from Mexico now, so the winds in this 30, 40 mile an hour range you see are generally off the coast, so the improving situation for those guys there. But you'll see the distribution of winds, the yellows that we're watching here, just get bigger and bigger, and that's a lot bigger than we saw yesterday on the same map. All right, here's the late cone. That there's no big changes here. The idea is that be around 150 miles per hour. Wouldn't be surprised to see it drop a little lower, and then it might get a little higher as these eye walls form and then shrink in and the storm grows in size. Remember that the pressure is kind of a measure of the amount of energy in the storm. So the bigger the storm is, the more distributed that energy is. So the top winds may not be as high, but the wind energy is distributed over a larger area. So low pressure, you get a low pressure, not so high a wind, wider storm. And that's what.
Very low pressure, high winds, you guys, with the sea level just rising for 15 feet. And exactly what Laura says here. All our friends that were kids with us that are stuck at the hotels all around there. Kids from the ranch and Sea Org days. They're all being told, they're all being ill-advised, misinformed. They don't have the ability to choose their information. They don't have the ability to decide for themselves, well, would this be okay with me? No, they are being treated as if they're owned. They're being spoken to as if they are owned cattle. They're not allowed to watch a news cycle. They get spoon-fed whatever the executives decide is going to be told to them. The executives control all the information. So if they want everyone to stay there, they just tell them, you are all going to be okay. The Fort Harrison was built to withstand hurricanes. That's what they would tell us all the time. Oh, don't worry about it, you guys. We are literally build this Fort Harrison to withstand all hurricanes. But we're talking about surge, water surge, that 15 feet of that coming up, and the Fort Harrison is going to be a disaster. We're talking about, I saw someone here earlier ask, Serge, how many? Here, Bridge 1872. How many Sea Org do you think they're in Clearwater currently? I mean, I would want to say when we were there, it was over like probably close to 1,000. And they pretty much need to keep that number. They cannot operate the entire hotels that they have all over the place if they have less than that. Plus, when we were there, they didn't even have the superpower building built yet. So now they have that entire superpower building built, plus the Fort Harrison, plus all the other Sandcastle Hotel and all the other hotels that they've been acquiring. So it's at minimum 1,000 people, I would think. In my opinion, is how many people are now, going to be put at risk because they weren't evacuated. They didn't leave. In Scientology, they're very pressed to always be making money. Every week they need to bring money. Every week they're being told to make a quota. So interrupting doing the L. Ron Hubbard techniques on people is not something that these people are going to take lightly. And it's not something that they literally give an F about. They're like, oh, let's change the course rooms over here. So even if something happens, let's just move everyone over here to this other place, because they will not stop themselves from delivering disgusting grooming courses, doing ethics handlings, and subjecting people to the disgusting audits that they want to do. In fact, they're probably doubling down on the audits right now, as they're telling people, go and audit it and shoo it away with the audit. Use the technology of L. Ron Hubbard to shoo it all away. And you know what? The technology of L. Ron Hubbard does not shoo away anything. It's all just a bunch of BS.
That's what we expect to happen. So the idea is in this period here tonight into early tomorrow, we get generally just up and down, but a very, very strong hurricane moving up toward Florida.
And west.
Then by tomorrow evening, so when it says a Wednesday PM here, nominally 8 p.m. Eastern time, it's approaching the state of Florida. The weather will have deteriorated over most of the state by that time. So you might have some time early in the morning, not so much in the Keys. The winds will start in the morning in the Keys and then move up the southwest coast. And then by the afternoon, then people should not be out moving around because that could get dangerous. Look at the winds over Florida, 100-mile-an-hour winds forecast in metropolitan Orlando. And that's why the hurricane warnings are in effect for that entire part of the state. And then
did L. Ron Hubbard have a theory of why natural disasters happen? Not that I know of. Not that I know of. I mean, you know, again, like the underlying theory of Scientology is that you pull in. Remember, like when the September 11 happened, David Miscavige put out that whole thing about the wake-up call, and then Debbie Cook went on for ranting and raving about how we had pulled in a terrorist attack because we were not clearing the planet fast enough, is what Debbie Cook would say. Oh, you guys are not clearing the planet fast enough. That's why, you know, terrorists are doing this. So they always have a way to make you feel guilty for things that are happening bad. And that's what's so egregious and disgusting about the controlling of this information. Because again, when you're an underage child at these hotels and these people that are running around with fake military uniforms talk with a lot of confidence, con mans and con women that they are, very confidently sitting there in their auditorium, you're going to get briefed. And that's what's so nauseating about this, you guys, because they're always telling people, we're going to brief you. We're going to really give you a briefing. So when you're there at the hotel, you don't think that you're being looped out because you're constantly being told, oh, we got the best briefing coming up. We're going to tell you. But they always sanitize the narrative because they always want to control everyone and they don't want anyone to leave. Remember, in Scientology, the biggest criminal act anyone can do, according to L. Ron Hubbard, is just take themselves out and say, you know what? I don't feel comfortable about having to stay here. So I'm going to leave for a couple of weeks and see how it happens. Like, see what happens. No one inside of those hotels or commercial buildings has that choice. They don't have autonomy. They don't have agency. They get told that they're going to be punished worse if they left. It doesn't matter if they are afraid that the hurricane is going to put them in danger. No, nothing matters. You already signed up your billion-year contract. You are owned. I mean, what type of volunteer is owned? Because that would be really great to start understanding right about now. In what world are people volunteering and yet they're owned and they're not being shown what is being literally put on the public record for all citizens of Florida to know? The information inside of these commercial buildings is controlled by the executives who decide, who cherry pick what information they want to tell them and what information they don't want to tell them. And the information that they withhold is so that they can manipulate the situation to do whatever it is that these people come up with. It's going to be greatest good for them. Oh, we wouldn't want to lose our supervisors. We wouldn't want to lose our auditors because then our stats are going to crash. And they get very pressed about their stats crashing. They get very pressed about them not making money. Like literally them not making money in one day is considered the worst thing in the whole wide world, because them making money on a daily basis is what makes them think that they're doing something that's very, very going to clear a planet, that is going to save the world. And imagine how many hurricanes have already existed where they tell the staff members, oh, you see, nothing happened because our OT powers really pushed it away. I mean, really let that sink in. This is how they've been manipulating the reality of the people that they're misinforming by purporting that some sort of OT power is the thing that made things change. Don't forget, they went around telling us when the Berlin Wall came down, oh, it's people that went on OT7 that made that happen. When there's a hurricane that's going to come over, Debbie Cook would go, oh, let me talk to all the OT7s and tell them to start auditing that on their knots. So again, delusional, infantile, ridiculous misinformation being spread by people that would go around wearing a fake military uniform, purporting that they're authorities. And they are authorities. Inside of the hotels, everybody thinks that they're legit. Everybody goes, oh, Debbie Cook must be really knowing what in the hell she's talking about.
Hurricane winds still forecast offshore, but it's going to be transitioning into more like a nor'easter at that time. And what that tends to do is focus the winds on the north side of the storm, so that if the track is coming in here and a storm is going like that, these winds are going to be the strong winds after we get to that transition, looks like on Thursday. Now, how about the factors related to the Gulf of Mexico? Well, I want you to note two things. We have, first of all, the loop current that comes up here. So this is a very warm pocket of water right there. You see it in the dark reds. And then,
I mean, again, you guys, look at that. Look at that redness. Look at that warm water. These are all things that spell disaster. And exactly, Laura, L. Con Hubbard talked about the ship and storms, or Hill 10s. That's what they would call it. Hill 10 is a disaster coming. And exactly what she's saying here. If you are prepared for the storm, it won't come. If you're not, you will wreck. So all of this is pitched as, oh, we really are well prepared because we really confront it. So, you know, and again, going back to like, oh, and we're not listening to the main media, corporate media that just wants to sell us fear. I mean, again, this is how these people manipulate the people inside. Oh, don't listen to anyone outside. Who cares? They're just selling you fear. So would you want to be buying some fear? Because why would you be wanting to buy fear? Like, and that is the stupid argument that is made with a full straight face by these people. That's why you see them still just boarding up windows and, you know, God knows where they're going to put them all to pass the storm. I mean, we're talking about what, over 1,000 people? And then what if everything is flooded with 15 feet worth of water? How are they supposed to eat? How are they supposed to have resources to help themselves? If they survive in their very strong Fort Harrison that really was built to really withstand a lot of hurricanes, something that they're very, very proud of, and they repeat ad nauseum whenever a hurricane is coming. Oh, Flag is the safest place on earth, you guys. It was built to withstand hurricanes. So they would literally call in the public and tell them, just come here. Come do a course with us while the storm is going on outside. Come to the Fort Harrison to do a course while the storm comes, and we're going to protect you here. So it's just ridiculous. It's really, really ridiculous.
look at this. This is from Helene, kind of a cool stretch going north, left over from Helene, relatively cool. It's still in the 80s. But then another very, very warm pocket of water over the shelf here just off the west coast of Florida. So it's going to have these.
Look at this. Look at where the warm pocket of water is right here, you guys. This is not the numbers you want to be seeing here. Right here's Tampa. Well, right here's Clearwater. So for this to be coming here and then getting hit with warm waters, this is just going to intensify, and these are not the numbers that you want to be seeing.
Have these two opportunities to get energized from the temperatures of the water there. So here's the hurricane warning area, all of central Florida down to southwest Florida on up.
I mean, again, let's not forget that here is Clearwater. The very, very tip of this iceberg here is where it's what's looking to be getting hit by what? All of this water, all of this chaos is hitting where? Right here.
On up into northeast Florida. Be ready for hurricane force winds by tomorrow night. That's the message. Be ready for that. Where this is where you park your car. This is ready for power to go out. This is ready for your water supply not to work, and so forth. Be ready. Tomorrow night is when this is going to happen. Storm surge on both coasts.
Look at this storm surge. Look at Tampa. Look at Clearwater. Where's all this water gonna go, you guys? Where's all of this water gonna go? It's going over here. It's going right here. There's Tampa. Well, Tampa's second. First is here, Clearwater, then is Tampa here. So this couldn't be more dire and this couldn't be more dangerous.
Especially on the West Coast, of course, with the stronger winds. But we have seen these departing storms cause significant storm surge on the northeast coast of Florida. I'll show you in a second. You know about the numbers.
Up to 15 feet, guys, here. Tampa, Clearwater, right here. Up to 15 feet. All of this water is coming in where? Right into there. Where is that water going to go? Water has to go somewhere. Water is not just going to stay there. It's going to go somewhere. This is just...
Up to 15 feet. We talk about Tampa Bay, but Longboat Key, the Sarasota area, on down to Venice, down to Englewood, which is just north of the Fort Myers, the Charlotte Harbor area, all depending on exactly where this storm comes ashore. It comes ashore there, it comes ashore there, and will push that storm surge south, up to 10 feet in the Fort Myers area and also to the north of Tampa Bay. Then on the other coast, here you have 4 or 5 feet. So in the Jacksonville area, on down to Flagler Beach, St. Augustine, and so forth, the wind is going to come this way. I'm going to show you that down to all the way, drive this up the cone. Folks in the Keys concerned because it looks like it's coming in that direction, but this dip is a very strong dip. It is going to take it up the cone toward the west coast of Florida. Exact angles, there's no way to know. The other thing is this is a lot of dry air here and strong winds. So what's going to happen? It's going to drive up into the dry air and strong winds. And here we see it on the model. There's the dry air. There's the dip in the jet stream there. There's your hurricane. Okay, so here we go and watch the moisture. And with the hurricane's going to push back against that dry air. And you notice what's happening here is it really shifts up to the north. Why is that? Because energy from the north comes in here and powers the left.
All of this dry air, you guys. I mean, again, it's like you're seeing all of these recipe for disaster situations. Caroline, would it be good time for people inside to escape? Caroline, this is where they lock up even more. And I would say no, because if anybody there wanted to escape before, doing it on a hurricane when you really do not have any resources outside is a very, very scary time. We thought we were being protected when we were there. As kids, we were convinced, oh, these people are protecting us. Oh, the best place to be when this hits is the Fort Harrison because it is very hurricane proof. So unfortunately, natural disasters like this make anybody that was thinking of leaving pretty much double down on staying because they are not aware of all the information, how it's being filtered, how it's getting pitched, what they want to do with them. So I would say, no, this is a time where anybody that was thinking of leaving is probably thinking of staying because it's very unclear what type of danger you're facing on the outside. And now, you're going, oh, well, the Sea Org is going to really help me here.
The left side of the storm gives it extra energy, and we get this redistribution and some drier air coming in here. This is near landfall, 9 o'clock tomorrow night. Now landfall nominally just after midnight. So it's beginning this transition, but it's also spreading out. Strong, extra energized winds as we get this convergence of winds from the north, winds from the south, and they're focused here on that northeast coast of Florida. So This is an all Florida event except for the Panhandle west of Tallahassee, folks. And today is your full day to prepare, to evacuate, to do whatever you're going to do, because tomorrow will be iffy. Some areas, obviously, tomorrow morning, you still have time to maneuver and get in place, but it's coming and it's going to happen. Bottom line is, don't be caught. We've had time to adjust this. It's a really hard thing. I mean, it's a really, having lived through this in South Florida, this is a really, really hard thing for people to imagine because they've never experienced it. Like the people that went through Andrew, they never.
Exactly, you guys. We were there for Andrew. Andrew was devastating. I still remember seeing photos of that, but that happened more south of Florida. And that's the thing about Tampa, that it's always had this aura that nothing is ever going to happen, because nothing has actually ever happened. If you go by what happened before, why would you even move? It's like everybody, the news always says it's going to be bad, and then it never happens. So it's like that story about the boy that cried wolf, right? It's like the wolf is coming, the wolf is coming, the wolf is coming. And then the wolf came all the other times he didn't come. And when he did come, it was carnage. And that's the problem with this entire situation. Clearwater has not really seen any impact of what this category of hurricane actually represents. But unfortunately, people go with, oh, well, how was it last time and the other past 5 times? Well, they told us it's going to be bad. But you know what? They just lie. They just make it up. They just, just overinflate to sell us fear. That's what Owen Hubbard told us. The media is just full of shit. They just want to make money by selling us fear, because their advertisers really just want to make money by selling fear to people, because that's what people watch on TV. That's how it's being pitched inside of the hotel. The media just blabs about this because they want to make money, and they don't give an F about informing anybody, because, they're just overinflating everything. And then they go, look at all the other times they told us to leave and nothing happened. So we're fine.
Never experienced anything like that. This won't be an Andrew type storm. Andrew was like a tornado. So, 2x4s were penetrating the concrete. That's not going to happen here. There's going to be safe places if you're not flooded. This is going to be a storm surge event. So
the storm surge event. Who wants to go up against 15 feet of a storm surge event, you guys? That much water, that much flooding. Nothing is built to withstand that. And the trauma of having to go through that, that's what no one can escape. If, God willing, people are spared, they're still having to cope with the trauma of having lived through this chaotic situation that will inflict trauma. I don't care how well prepared anybody thinks they can be. And, again, that's why this matters so much, because, we're not really equipped to handle, our nervous system is not equipped to handle that level of unthinkable danger that can go on for hours and hours and hours, and there's nothing you can do to stop. There's no one you can call to stop. Nothing. It's just really, really, horrible what we're facing here with this.
We have to get away from the water, get to high ground, stay in interior places, and be ready for a long time without power, maybe water, and maybe access to other areas where you can get help.
Yeah, it is. There's so many things we could talk to you about, Brian, really, when it comes to the threats that are in Florida.
Exactly, April. As New Orleans residents who stayed during Katrina, because that because it was never that bad before. You cannot mess with Mother Nature. And again, it was that horrific flooding, right, April? It's that rising of the tide that once you're facing that, like, your house isn't going to protect you. Like, there's nothing that can protect you. You're literally in full-blown chaos when that is happening. And again, what you're saying here about Katrina, that really kind of reminds me of this situation, is the way that Tampa and Clearwater are geographically put. Like, Clearwater's here, Tampa's here. They have a whole body of water that's over here, a pocket. When all of this water comes in, where is that pocket coming? It floods it, and then it just expands it, and it's going to overflow. I mean, where is all that water going to go? You know, and this is like what he said here, the guy about Andrew. Andrew was a tornado that was blasting through concrete, and the blasting of the concrete is not what is the scary part about this. Is the actual fact that the storm surge, looking at 15 feet of chaotic water coming from every single place. What can anyone do in that situation?
In Florida, in addition to just the fact that you have recovering communities with debris, a lot of debris on the ground, dangerous debris. One of the things you talked about with Tampa was the double surge threat. So as Milton approaches, where the center falls in regards to Tampa, and then also as it tries to pull away, in addition to the surge threat at Tampa that we're concerned about, the potential for a foot of rain also trying to work its way out.
Yeah, so the Florida has rivers. It's relatively flat, so all those rivers drain either to the Atlantic or the Gulf. So that's an issue. Let me the double surge thing is just, you know, it's a little academic, but it's kind of interesting here. Cody, maybe you can help me if I don't get the right map, but yeah, I can kind of show it on this map here. So the idea is that if the storm comes very close to Tampa, something like this, in the beginning, the wind is coming around like this and driving the water into Tampa Bay. But then when the storm is over here, the wind is coming back this way and can drive the water into Tampa Bay. So if it goes very close to Tampa Bay, which is the center of the cone, I don't want to say it's the forecast. The forecast is for the storm to come to the west coast of Florida in the general vicinity of Tampa Bay, Sarasota, and so forth. But if you go right down the middle of the cone, it's right over Tampa Bay. So you can get multiple effects. And remember, Tampa Bay is not a little thing. And so you're driving the water into Pinellas when it's going this way. You're driving the water into Hillsborough County when it's going this way. And then you have Old Tampa Bay and Hillsborough Bay and all these different things. The water can actually slosh back and forth in the bay in very complicated and big ways. So, I mean, it's a nightmare. It really is, because the way the city is developed, it's developed in that low-lying area. Pinellas County, back in the 1921 hurricane, was largely covered by water from the Gulf. And I think about 2/3 of that county is in an evacuation zone now, because either from Gulf water coming from one side or bay water coming from the other side. So it's a very, very, very threatening scenario. You know, I've been asked many times, I've done specials over the years, what's the most vulnerable city to hurricanes on the U.S. coast? And number one is either Tampa or Houston. I've gone
Tampa or Houston, the two most vulnerable cities for hurricanes, you guys. Because of the geography, because of the fact that it is a bay, because of the fact that it's got all the ability to have all the water come in, where is that water gonna go? Where is the water going to literally go? So Houston and Tampa, the two most vulnerable.
Gone back and forth and on my list, right? Houston, because of the petrochemical factories
Factories
and,
right
and
along the
refineries and all
bay.
that
Yeah.
in Galveston Bay, that oil and everything gets pushed up into Houston, right? That's one kind of thing. This is the kind of thing where so much of the city is vulnerable to being just overrun by Gulf water.
Yeah, and we knew that Helene would be a test and certainly some significant damage, as we've talked to people saying it was unimaginable what we experienced with Helene, and now to see a worst case scenario playing out now regarding Milton, and few changes with this track. This track has been highly confident. I know you'd said it yesterday, Brian. We'll have to wait till the hours before landfall to see and detect any of those small.
Monstrous, 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 you guys. That's what we're facing in that community today. Yeah. Yikes. Yikes is right, Moon Taxi. Those barrier islands there at Clearwater took a hit from Helene. Yeah, you guys. And again, it's like the problem with this situation is that it's unprecedented. What's being reported, the danger being faced right now is unprecedented. That's why it's really, really, unthinkable that this is going on. So the scientists are still in buildings in Clearwater, Small Fry. Yeah, pretty much. Pretty much. They're not leaving. They're not evacuating. I mean, that's not what they did when we were there. Maybe they are today. I won't know. I just know that these people do not change the way they operate. And like Laura mentioned earlier, there's a policy for L. Ron Hubbard says that if you prepare for a disaster, then the disaster doesn't happen. And it's a very stupid way of looking at a disaster because, again, it's all narcissistic, egocentric based. It's like, oh, due to my brilliance, I'm going to be able to withstand this. And it's like, you don't go against Mother Nature when she is this mad and win. No man can outsmart, outpower, outmaneuver anything like this. This is what calls for a moment of being humble and understanding that you cannot control what you cannot control. And like I said before, the only thing these people can control is stepping away, get to a place where the level of danger is not going to be as severe, because it's just really, really scary. Yeah, and the wildlife that's displaced in these events is crazy. And the traumatization, again, for all animals and all humans involved, you guys. Like, no animal, no human, no nervous system can withstand this level of intensity and come out unscathed. Even if you survived, even if you did live to tell, your nervous system is shot. Exactly, Caroline. Nature is so powerful that it has to be quite humbling. Yeah. So I wanted to give you guys what we experience in those Scientology hotels, the level of misinformation that is spread as a result of wanting to control a narrative. We are calling that out because, again, if nobody knows, if nobody understands that, then how is anyone supposed to understand what these people are actually facing? That's the reality that we faced at the time. And we thought we were being protected when we were there. And it's taken coming out of that delusion, coming out of that gaslighting, to understand that we weren't being protected and that we were being put in harm's way, and that, again, having no agency didn't help us make a decision for ourselves. And again, that's what we're calling out about Scientology, that it turns people into slaves, and slaves do not have a choice. They just simply don't. And even today, we are discussing as it applies to the adults, because yes, they did choose to become part of this disgusting hotel. The adults did consent to that. But in what world was anyone going to go, oh, I'm going to save a world, but then if a category 4, 5 hurricane comes, how is that going to compromise me? Because that's what we're actually advocating for. It's like these people are being compromised because they don't have a choice, and no kids there have a choice, and we're advocating for them. The fact that Scientology puts them on the front lines to put sandbags and to do this and to do that and to do jobs that shouldn't be their job to be doing, since they are minors. We're speaking to you from our own personal experience on how Debbie Cook was running this. And I've gotten the pushback, well, how do you know that, what Debbie Cook did is still being done by somebody else? Because that's how these hotels are run, you guys. Like, whoever took over Debbie Cook has to be like Debbie Cook. She was the captain. So whatever the other person was doing, they have to do themselves as well. They have the same policies. They have the same delusions of grandeur. They have the same level of delusion. So in what world are they going to be able to act better than Debbie Cook when they're making decisions based on a manual pitched by a convicted felon that tells them that they are so above it all? And you know what? They're not that above it all at the end of the day. They really aren't. Exactly. If they don't evacuate, they've been told to write their names on their arms with Sharpie. I mean, how sad. How sad. You literally have to write your name with the Sharpie so that if you're just found, they're able to identify you. It's just not good. Question: if shit goes sideways, will anyone be held accountable for forcing people to stay? I don't think so, Golden Rule Girl. I mean, we've never seen that. We've never seen that be the case. We've never seen Scientology people holding themselves accountable for making wrong decisions, because they're always co-opting everybody. It's like, oh no, all of you chose this. Don't forget, don't blame us. We're just the ones that gave you the misinformation, is what the Scientology executives say. But they make sure that they're always blaming anything bad that happens is the fault of the people that put themselves in that situation. That's what they call it. So there's not a lot of appetite for taking responsibility for anything, for taking accountability, for changing anything. So again, thank you guys for holding space. Thank you guys. Hopefully more people heed this warning. More people do pack their bags, and we are going to be watching very carefully this unfold, because so many of our community that is helping us protest these atrocities are right now being impacted, and they're in harm's way as a result of living in Florida. And, we have to stand up for them and hope for the best, and hope that everyone has whatever possible resources they can get onto to put themselves in whatever place that is away from the wrath of this unthinkable hurricane that is going to hit tomorrow evening. So we're going to keep monitoring and telling you guys any information that I find out. There's some under the radar people reporting things. So we will continue informing all of you because they know that you guys care. And as long as we care, something's being done about it. So thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you all soon. Bye.